Hi Chris, how are you?
Good afternoon, Rod. Yes, I'm well. We're recording early today, aren't we? I'm going to get it out of the way early doors. It's the 22nd of May. It's my fault because I'm going away at the weekend and I forgot to tell you. And it's episode 174. And the weather is warm and a little windy.
It's really nice here. We actually got some rain a couple of days ago, which was much needed. It was super dry.
But
same. That means the grass is going to go mental. And I'm doing no mow May. So it's going to be as high as an elephant's bum, as they used to say.
We're kind of doing no mow May because I've sown a load of grass seed that isn't doing very well because of the dry weather we've had. So we've inadvertently done no mow May.
Very, very good. And chicken update?
Chicken update. So just before the show, I did go and take a photo. I was meant to load it up, and there it is. And there's 4 chickens sat on a branch.
Very good. You can send me that, and I will attach it to the show notes, or I'll make sure that it pops up in the video just as we're talking about it. So that's very good. Chicken,
so
check.
For a change, I've done my homework.
Well done. Weather, check. Is there anything else we're meant to talk about at the top of the show?
Nah, let's get straight into follow-up.
Let's get straight to it. So straight away, we have follow-up on, we talked an awful lot about Fortnite and all sorts of stuff last week, but just before we did that, I made some sort of mention about Riley Testit's app warning if you were to try and use the App Store inside of Delta, and we didn't have it to hand, so this is just immediate follow-up on that for the YouTube viewers, and obviously it'll be a link in the show notes, you're able to see what the Delta warning is if you go and buy something in the App Store. It says, you're about to use Apple's in-app purchase system. Patreon is not responsible for the privacy or securities of purchases made with in-app purchase. I love this. I love the next bit as well. Any accounts or purchases made outside Patreon will be managed by the company, in inverted commas, Apple Incorporated. And this is exactly what they do to developers, and I think it's just juicy. I really do.
Yeah, it is quite good, but it's just a shame. It's a good Mickey take, but it's just insane that we've ended up at this point. That's what blows my mind.
It is a bit crazy, but then it's been a crazy week because after all of our toing and froing with Fortnite and the fact that Apple was going to take him back to court, and Epic were unhappy that they'd rejected or at least not accepted Fortnite back into the US App Store. Out of the blue, on May the 20th, bang, Fortnite was back in the US App Store.
Whoop, whoop.
I guess we don't see it in the rest of the world, so whoop if you're American. It's
a small step forward, is it not? Would you not say, is Apple actually listening to the outside world? I was thinking about this. Are Apple actually listening to any of the podcasts that are going on? Are they actually aware of what the outside world is thinking?
I would have to think they have a fairly dedicated social media, pulse of the community type team that they probably ignore 99.8% of the time. This, I just think maybe they just thought it's not worth this. We're on a loser with this court case anyway. Maybe we just need to look like we're going to bend a bit. And the fact that it's only in the US store makes me think they're still going to fight this in every corner of the world.
Yeah, maybe. I think it feels like it's a small step forwards. I just want them. I say just. Why can't they just stop being idiots, listen to the world, and just come up with a proper plan worldwide? And just stop having this territory by territory thing. I just find it mind-blowing.
It is. They make things very difficult for themselves. And that's, a lot of what we talk about when it's not Trump tariffs and various crazy things like that are Apple's reaction to developers and pushbacks on, their earnings here, there, and everywhere, and percentages and link outs. And this particular spat, for want of a better word, does a 5-year legal fight count as a spat? Spat sounds a bit more minor than that. It's just been ongoing, and it's crazy. Well, it was crazy that Epic tried to do what they did, to push this situation. I bet they weren't anticipating taking this 5 years.
No, and it just feels like a petulant child at this point that both sides have just dug in, or Apple's dug in, really. 5 years is a long time. I mean, they must have thought it was going to take years, but did they bet on 5? I don't know.
I wouldn't have thought they did. Anyway, it's back. If you're a US App Store customer, then you can go and you can download it. I believe it's top of the US App Store. We obviously can't see that in the UK here. I suppose I could flip on a VPN. More on that later. So there's obviously pent-up demand for Fortnite. We'll see how this goes. Do you think if the court case comes back again and they don't get sanctioned by the judge for all the things like criminal action and all the other things, they'll just flip the switch and knock it out again?
I don't know. I think maybe they've succumbed on this point so that they maybe get a lighter ruling on anything else. I don't know. Maybe they're doing this as a token of goodwill.
Well, just before WWDC, I find the timing interesting.
Do you think yes or no we'll have Fortnite in the UK by the end of the year? on our iDevices.
Oh my gosh. Let's go with yes, but I wouldn't put actual money on it. Just yes.
Yeah, no, I was just more idle curiosity.
I think it's a reasonable thing to think about. What do you think?
I don't know. Part of me says yes, but the part of me says it took Epic 5 years to get it back on the US App Store. And this is like one country, so I'm completely mixed on it. I'll go no, just to be contrarian.
Well, you need to put something in the notes then, so we remember to look at it, or put an entry in your diary right now for the New Year special or whatever. Is Fortnite in the UK App Store? Moving on, and we've had a few stories on AI slop, for want of a better word. And this is a story that was in Ars Technica earlier this week about the Chicago Sun-Times printing best summer reads of 2025. So when you're going to go off on holiday, newspapers quite often do this kind of thing. Here's the things you want to read, top science fiction, best beach reads, that kind of stuff. As it turned out, the LLM that they'd used to write this bestseller list had made some books up. I think this is just terrific.
Well, there's two problems here, isn't there? One, AI has gone and got the wrong answer, and two, somebody's printed the wrong answer and they haven't checked what they're printing. Like, it's idiotic, isn't it, that they've allowed it to go to press?
So, I mean, the article from Ars Technica, which, like I say, is earlier in the week. So, Chicago Sun-Times, big, well-regarded newspaper. Andy Ihnatko, who the well-regarded Mac blogger from years and years ago, used to have a column in the Chicago Sun-Times. So, it's one of the papers I know about. And this list was created by somebody called Marco Buscaglia, who confirmed to the website 404 Media that he had used AI to generate the content. I do use AI for background at times, but always check out the material first. Do you, Marco? Do you really? This time I did not, and can't believe I missed it because it's so obvious. So in this case, 5 of the 15 recommended books were fictional.
5
out of 15. So here's your recommended trusted source of news, the Chicago Sun-Times, who the editorial is wrong to begin with for letting this through. The journalist, I put that in scare quotes, is wrong for using an LLM to produce this in the first place. But why is an LLM writing content for a newspaper? Why are they allowing this to happen? Is he doing the work of 15 journalists and just having LLM crank out his stories?
But this is where we're at now. Everybody is using, I say everybody, a majority of people are using AI in some form to help them do something, because it does feel like a lot of companies are asking employees to do more and more and more, and therefore this is their mechanism to get more productive, isn't it? That's the AI dream. You can do the work of 10 people by being one person with an AI assistant, co-pilot, whatever you want to call it,
and it can get 10 times the amount wrong as 10 people would have done.
Yeah, so it saved you work in generating some content, and then it's obviously giving you a load of work just to tide it all up afterwards.
Yeah, not very good, Chicago Sun-Times. I mean, they're saying it's not editorial content, but if it's published on their site, they're responsible for it ultimately.
Yeah, they are. They've published this article. They are responsible, sure.
Yes, they can't say it's not editorial. So I will be quite interested to see the resolution of this, that maybe the push away from newsrooms. And I understand newspapers are squeezed. Less and less people buy print media anymore. Less and less people watch news content anymore because it's really depressing and they get it from somewhere else. And you don't always want to be watching all the horrendous stuff that's happening in the world, that sort of disengagement with it. This isn't going to help that, though.
No, I must confess, I sometimes put the news on before bed and then I turn it off again because it just makes me sad.
Yeah, I get it. Let's talk about something else that might make you sad. So,
brilliant.
What else is there, Unsurprisingly, following the tariff madness that was unleashed upon the world about a month ago, iPhone and other smartphone imports from China have hit their lowest level since 2011. This isn't shocking, is it?
But how are they fulfilling orders? The orders kind of just magically disappeared.
Well, maybe they have. Maybe everybody looked at the tariffs and said, I can't afford that, or I can't afford what it's going to cost. The impact on consumers as well as businesses was pretty significant and almost straight away, wasn't it? All right, it took a while. There's always going to be a gap now because the ships full of phones and the planes full of phones aren't landing in the United States. Remember, Apple immediately shipped, a 747 or whatever it was, full of iPhones from China the day the tariff uncertainty came in, so they'd be protected for a bit. So they got a bit of a buffer. But those ships are now not arriving in the port of San Francisco and now not arriving in places. So, of course, there's going to be a drop. And as a consumer, you don't know what's going to happen. When you actually go to buy your iPhone or your Samsung, this isn't just restricted to iPhones. You don't know what you're in for. So I'm not surprised it's dropped. Consumer confidence is taking a big knock.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Confidence isn't there. The markets are in a bit of turmoil. A lot of people sort of shares, pensions aren't worth what they were. So you're right. Maybe everybody's just gone, hang on a minute, let's just step back and let the dust settle.
Yeah, because at the time, the reported cost of eggs in the United States was off the charts. If you can't afford to buy eggs, you can't afford to buy a luxury smartphone, which is just an upgrade for most people.
Why do you think we've got chickens?
I didn't think we had quite the same shortage here in the UK, but, okay.
I just thought it was a good tangential link.
It's not bad. Smartphones weren't the only things, according to this 9 to 5 Mac article. Also, laptops, SSDs, unsurprisingly, and we know about Nintendo and their reaction. And Sony put their prices up as well, as did Microsoft on their consoles. So the prices went up across the board. They're not being there to be bought. This is a problem for the United States market and for China and other exporters of goods.
Yeah, it is. It is a problem, isn't it? That is the thing. There was scaremongering to get manufacturing back in the US has created a different problem that I don't think they had planned for.
No, they thought people would just bend over. I don't know what they were thinking. I'm going to move on to something else that's almost as grim that happened here in the UK. So we reported last week, and I think the week before, about the ransomware attacks that were taking place on the Co-op, Harrods, and Marks & Spencer's. I think Marks & Spencer's are almost up and running again, except that I think you can do returns and stuff now, but online shopping's still down. There's still some repercussions of the Marks & Spencer's hack. Co-op is similar.
What is interesting with M&S is I was reading an article, apparently they had no plan if they got breached, had a cyber breach, and employees were encouraged after the breach to use personal devices. Don't talk on Teams, which is the corporate best solution, but use your personal device and talk on WhatsApp and sleep in the office. And they just didn't seem to have a plan. And asking employees to use their personal devices and phone numbers, and you may not want to share your personal details with some of your work colleagues because you may leave that company one day. They may message you or harass you or whatever it may be. So I just found the whole thing mind-blowing that employees were put in that position. Historically, I used to be an employee that would just do whatever needed to get done to get the job done. But I think a company like that should have had a plan in place and equipment and measures and protocols, but clearly had nothing.
Business continuity, come on. You shouldn't have something like that, should you, in your business? That if things go wrong, what's the backup?
Interesting, though, M&S share price barely being impacted by it.
M&S, if it's going to happen to any company in the UK, M&S is one of the most trusted brands here, I think. People are always going to go and buy their pants and their avocados from Marks & Spencer's. Co-op are also in a fortunate position in that they are the sole supplier for lots of places. Where they put their shops, there often isn't a lot of competition. So, and also they're not owned by shareholders. That they're owned by the people who have the shops. They're sort of, as John Lewis, Marks & Spencer's have that kind of model slightly as well. John Lewis weren't affected by that. I don't know where that came from. I don't know. I associate Marks & Spencer's for John Lewis just for a second in my head. And Harrods are the same. That if you want high-end luxury goods, you're going to go to Harrods. But the thing we're about to talk about now, which is the supplier of lots of supermarkets, Peter Green Chilled in this case, which has also been targeted by this something Spider group, or the group that's behind the hack, are now attacking the distributor at a higher up level. Presumably there's other distributors as well. So something like that's likely to have more of an impact.
Yeah, they're going. Maybe they found out about the supply chain through recent attacks, and now they're going after the supply chain. So it doesn't feel like we're done yet, and there's going to be more of this.
No, and in this case, Peter Green Chilled supply Asda, Morrison, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Waitrose, Co-op, and M&S. So they're really going for it, aren't they?
It's quite a monopoly of supermarkets there.
It really is, and well done them for Peter Green Chilled for being able to supply this kind of stuff to them. But you're a single point of failure again.
Yeah, and a lot of companies like that because they want that economies of scale, through how they make their contracts and acquire, and then they've got all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah. Apparently the company has thousands of packets of meat due to be delivered to supermarkets by Peter Green Chilled, currently sitting in limbo. That's just going to rot.
It's grim, isn't it? Yeah, it's very time-dependent delivery.
Yeah, it's so, as with Apple and iPhones, putting all these things together is complicated. Having a properly just-in-time supply chain, which obviously supermarkets and everybody has as well. That's how the modern world works. Things are scheduled to arrive, so you don't have wastage sitting on shelves. We're not designed to have warehousing for almost anything anymore, and that includes meat and clothes and iPhones. So,
well, you don't want warehousing, do you? You want, like you say, just-in-time. You keep it really lean, because the longer you're warehousing it, the quicker it's going off. And
that's why logistics has exploded. It's probably the wonder of the modern age, really, is sort of highly coordinated logistics that do work across countries and across nations. But it shows how vulnerable we are to.
100%. I did go into Co-op the other day and the shelves were a little bit empty, to say the least.
Yeah, not great. Not great at all. That's kind of our watchword of this podcast, isn't it? It's not great.
Yeah, we've got some good stuff coming up, though.
Not this, though. This is also not great. So we talked about 23andMe, which was the genetics company that was hacked and then was trying to sell itself around. So this was they were doing Ancestry. If you sent them a vial of your blood in, they'd sequence you and they'd tell you were 14% Spanish, 12% French, and they'd actually be able to work your genome back. Plus, if you had any big worrying genetic diseases to worry about, they were able to pull that out as well. Anyway, they got hacked, some of their data went, they were able to link the genetics back to identity and payment records and things like that. So that was the end of 23andMe. However, a big pharma company has come along and swept up all that genetic data for the paltry sum of $256 million. So as a pharma company, that's fantastic for your business.
Yeah, that's... Oh, wow, it's amazing it's all been sold, isn't it? It's quite a lot of money.
Well, but not if you're a pharma company. So this is Regeneron Pharmaceuticals in this instance, who've announced this agreement. It conservatively costs a large pharmaceutical company $1 billion to bring a drug from animal testing or development through phase 3 clinical trials and then introduce it to market. And that's not counting the marketing costs and everything that will go along with it. So if it costs $1 billion to get through the clinical trials, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and this gives you an advantage by being able to model it on actual people's genetics, that's $256 million is a drop in the ocean.
Yeah, okay. That makes a bit more sense.
Yeah. So this is interesting. On one hand, the side of me that's a researcher thinks this could actually be good for humanity in the sense of you have a large, the amount of people that took part in 23andMe, they have a large genetic sample to work from. It's a large cohort of all sorts of ethnicities from all over the world that, of all manner of things. So the ability to computer model against that and see what alleles are working against them is phenomenal. On the other side, how ethical is it that you just pick up something that was designed for something else? The consent people gave 23andMe to work with the genetic data probably didn't include it ever being sold off to a pharmaceutical company to be modeled against. So that the value of that is more than $256 million, and I'm sure the pharma company will do well as a consequence. And plus, knowing what pharma companies are like, they'll work together on this data, and then if they do come up with a drug that cures, pick something random, cold sores, what will they charge? The end user to have access to that drug.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Okay, I think you've convinced me it's not a scary amount of money as I thought it was.
No, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing for a pharma company.
Right, okay.
Any other news?
A follow-up.
Sorry, follow-up, yeah.
No, I think we're good.
Okay, we have a bit of a Microsoft bent in the news, so I think I'll let you kick us off. Tell us our first Microsoft story.
Signal has blocked the Windows recall feature, which is just, this recall thing just keeps, it's a bit like Apple and Fortnite. It just keeps going on and on and on, doesn't it? And everything Microsoft seems to do with it, nobody seems happy with it. So it's quite interesting that Signal, obviously uber secure company known for their secure messaging platform, has blocked it immediately. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, so it's going to block the ability of Windows to screenshot the app. And this is great on one level, and well done, Signal. That whatever you're putting in Signal, you probably don't, unless you're Pete Hegseth and you're the Secretary of Defense of the United States, and you're quite happy to share that with journalists and things like that. Most people don't want their messaging, capturable by Windows Recall. Every 3 seconds, it's taking a picture of your desktop, and you've got some sensitive message up there, or sensitive pictures, or corporate secrets, or whatever it is that your Marks and Spencer's food order that's sitting in your Signal Messenger. You don't want Microsoft Recall to pick that up to potentially be picked up again by something else down the line.
Or you're just putting in the master password to the database or whatever it may be, and it captures it. Yeah,
whatever it is. Your company's just fired you and you're giving back the keys to the kingdom. You don't want that going into Recall, do you? No matter how secure Microsoft make it. This is great on one end that the users, that the company is able to opt out of Recall in this way, but it's bad on another one because, again, if you were sharing something like that within a Zoom call with somebody else, their Recall can still pick it up. So there's still so many issues with this Recall thing. I've got serious problems with Recall, as do consumers, I think, and I think enterprises will too.
Yeah, I've not seen anybody use it yet. I've not heard much about it. I think it's in beta form, but I've not really heard anything good about it. Nobody seems hyped for it.
No, and I got to say, I don't think the general public will understand what it's for.
Probably not. I wonder, actually, do people even want this thing? I just don't know if there's much need for it.
I 100% agree.
And it feels quite rudimentary, doesn't it?
Yeah, something that they might feel there is a need for is a feature that we've got used to in macOS for quite a while now, and that's Handoff. So you start browsing something on your phone, you get close to your Mac, and you can click on the shortcut that appears in your dock, bang, and you're looking at the same website you were on your phone, and vice versa. So reportedly in a version of Windows 11 coming, that there's going to be cross-device resume with Spotify to begin with, Handoff. So that's only taken them, 6 years? Have we had that long on the Mac? I think something like that.
It's been quite a long time we've had all of this stuff on the Mac, the iPad and the phone. I must confess I don't use it a huge amount, but annoyingly if you turn it off though, it turns off everything. You can't just, because I don't really want the apps popping up and down in my dock. So I tried to turn that off, but it turns off everything. You can't then copy and paste between devices and move your cursor and things. It's clever tech, it is clever, but I don't know how Microsoft can do this, because obviously it can't get it from your iPhone or from your Android device, so it's just going to have to work with individual apps, I guess, which is going to take a while to implement. And is anybody going to use it? I don't know.
I'm not surprised at Spotify first, because Spotify are really good at this. That you can.
They are good at being early on boarders, aren't
they? And knowing what state your audio's in, so you can leave something playing on your speaker in the house, go out to your car with your phone, and start playing it there. So it's Spotify's technology that's really enabling this at this point more than Microsoft.
That's quite cool.
It is. They do that really, really well, and in many ways more seamlessly. It's also slightly more irritating than Apple, because there's more heavy policing of your licensing. Certainly there was last time I used Spotify, where if I had my Spotify account connected inside the house for my smart speakers, and then I'd go out to the car, put something on in the car, start listening to that on Spotify, and then the kids would ask to play something on the smart speakers in the house, it would stop playing in my car, because you could only have that one license, whereas Apple is far more forgiving about that.
Yeah, I can see how that could be problematic.
Even though I had a family Spotify account, what I should have done is used another blank account for the house thing, but then it doesn't have your playlists and things on it. So
yeah, ours is quite good. It just all kind of works with Apple Music, so I can't really complain.
It does, and I'd be curious if YouTube Music. Anyway, the long and the short of it is this is good, Microsoft, but I'm with you. I don't understand how, unless you've got Edge or something running on your phone and they've got some sort of control over the back end of it, I don't see how they're going to sync between what's on your phone and...
Have you ever seen people use Edge on their phone?
Can you get Edge on the phone? I don't know.
You can, and you can get it on your iPad. It's got to be such a small user base. Yay, Microsoft.
No.
Copying a feature from 10 years ago. 6 years ago, I think you said.
Yeah, well, whatever. I mean, I'm not happy with Microsoft. I'm not very happy with Apple doing it these days, frankly, but I'm certainly not happy with Microsoft doing it.
Fair enough.
Something that you may or may not be happy about Microsoft doing, sticking with a Microsoft theme, is you're going to get some AI actions in your File Explorer. So you use Windows 11. I use it a little bit at work, but again, we have the enterprise version of this, so I'm not expecting to see it anytime soon. And there's going to be some automated built-in actions on the right-click menu, effectively. So you're going to be able to do visual search with Bing on an image that's in your right-click menu. I got to say, on some level, I think this is quite good. Automatically remove a background color or something like that, but where does this stop? As AI gets better and better able to understand the context in which you're using it and your documents on your desktop, is your right-click menu just going to be this massive overpopulated thing where you correct my grammar, remove the background, take this person out? Where does this end?
Yeah, sorry, I was just digesting what you're saying. Under AI Actions, I kind of agree with you, because down the bottom of that screen grab, they've got Ask Copilot. Why is that not under AI Actions? I don't know, it's all a bit odd. We must tell everybody we're doing AI. At some point, are we going to stop branding things as Copilot and AI and just call it a function like cut? It doesn't matter that cut's now AI enhanced or blur is AI enhanced. I do wonder whether we are going to have that moment where we can stop calling it all AI and it's just normal functions and it's got AI in it, but we don't need to shout about it anymore because it's just commonplace.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably about 3 different ways of getting at Copilot here, isn't there? Like you say, you've got Ask Copilot down the bottom. I bet if you go into Photos, there's probably something, and if there isn't yet, there will be.
Yeah, that logo's going everywhere. It's in Windows. It's in every app.
I hate that logo. I hate the Copilot logo. In my Outlook app on my iPhone now, it's the middle icon down the bottom.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I've stopped using Outlook on my mobile now, so... I don't know.
Lucky you, but there's no escape for the rest of us. And it's Microsoft 365 with Copilot or Copilot with Microsoft 365. I don't understand which way around it is.
Everything's got Copilot liberally sprinkled on it.
I don't have a Copilot key on my new laptop's keyboard, though, so that's something, a framework gear instead.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, I don't want any of that Copilot stuff. But is made with Apple Intelligence going to be any better, or whatever else comes next? I don't know. This is beginning of a worrying trend, though, of Microsoft trying to sort of expose everything they think a user might want. And I think they're at risk of making this menu and whatever voice actions come along with it, with your Hey Copilot when that comes along, disturbingly complicated.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think it will come. I think a couple of years from now, hopefully, everyone's got used to AI being everywhere, and we don't need to shout about it, and it just becomes normal.
Isn't that a worrying sign of the future? We've got a few more AI stories coming up, like this one, for example, where Jony Ive, ex of Apple fame and probably the most influential designer of, the 21st century up to this point, I would say, has sold his company to OpenAI for a device, an AI-enabled device, which is a bit mysterious.
Yeah, sorry, I just can't get past this picture. It looks like a picture for an advert where it's about two people in special care or something. It's just a very odd picture, isn't it?
I was thinking more like a Tinder or something like that, where
it's just bizarre.
They've got a special relationship now, which is fine. They can have a special relationship. They do. They've got a $6.5 billion relationship.
So I think Jony Ive's AI hardware being gobbled up by OpenAI, not a big shock, right? But it being gobbled up for £6.5 billion, that's quite a shock. I mean, Jony Ive's just printing money over there. It's insane. And he's, nearly 60, I think. Like, does he need all this? I don't know. Maybe this is what keeps him going, but he's doing some good stuff. It's going to be super interesting. So what's happened here then is Jony Ive set up with some other people like Evans Hankey used to work at Apple and some other people. They've set up a hardware company called I/O. It's quite a cool name. I like the name I/O. And now they're going to merge in with OpenAI, and Jony Ive's Love From team are going to work on the hardware and on software for OpenAI. So I think I don't know. AI seems to be turning a corner this year of actually getting a bit more interest. We've gone through all the dirty phase, and we're coming out into everybody's getting quite excited about it, I think
tech companies are getting very excited about it, and there's certainly a low-level use going on. Check my grammar, look at this up for me, and we're going to talk about Google in a minute and what they think about it all. I'm not sure about I/O as a company. I mean, when we talk about Google, we're going to talk about Google I/O. That's what they do. That's their thing. So I think there's a chance for mixing this up. The underlying thing of this is that Jony Ive thinks devices like the Rabbit R1 and the Humane Pin were garbage, and whatever he's come up with is better. Now, Johnny's a designer who does hardware. When he turned to software, it wasn't so good. macOS went through a fairly grim period when Jony was in charge of the software. Certainly the look of the software, the user interface of it. So I bet he's designed a beautiful-looking device, but it's going to take that OpenAI, I hesitate to use the word magic, let's call it secret sauce, to actually make something that's useful.
Secret sauce. I think it's going to be super interesting because others have tried. Obviously, we've had the Humane Pin, we've had that Rabbit R1. What are they going to do that's different? What are they going to do that means I'm going to go and buy this AI device, whatever it is, and they haven't said, and carry my phone at the same time? What is that?
I mean, it's not going to be glasses, they've said. So I am quite interested in this. Let's face it, the iPhone could be a watch, could be headphones, could be whatever, but you're going to need cameras in it.
Is it a fancy pin?
Oh, I don't think that worked, though.
That one didn't, but I don't know.
But
does that mean that's dead forever? I don't know.
Genuinely, Jony makes the box, right? Jony makes the iPhone. Jony makes the iPod. He doesn't make whatever comes inside of it. And OpenAI have proven to a certain degree that they can make a very clever LLM, but they're not the only ones. And LLMs take power, and LLMs need a good solid connection to the internet, and. So Jony could make the greatest looking watch, headphones, pendant, necklace, whatever this is, ring. But it's what does it do? That's the important thing. If it looks like a Philips shave razor or something like that, which, the Braun razor is really what inspired a lot of Jony's design sensibilities, and Philippe Stark and people like that. I get he's made a sexy widget, but there's not a lot more detail than that. Is it running ARM chips? Was it got broad 5G connections? What's the deal, man?
I don't think we're going to know for a while, but it's going to. I think I've got a little bit of hope. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
Because they're going to have seen the failed products. Then and Jony is good at coming in to a market and showing people how to do it the right way.
Maybe. Somebody who may or may not be showing us to do things the right way is Google. And Google had their I/O event 2 days ago at this point, I think. May 20th. Yes, 2 days ago. Did you watch any of this event?
No.
It's quite a hard watch, and fair play to The Verge, they cut an hour and a half event down to 32 minutes. But they should have called it Google AI, because every single thing they announced was jamming Gemini.
Should it have been AIO instead of Google I/O?
That's very good. I mean, at the start they had this sort of expose of their new Ironwood processors, which are faster and they do more exaflops than anything else. Server scale stuff. You're not going to get that in a phone. They also signed up to this MCP, Model Context Protocol, which allows agents to happen, so you can have a shopping agent. I think the example they gave was, and I better not play too much of this or I'll be sanctioned by the YouTube gods, that you can set up something that goes, go and research this for me. I'm interested in this dress. It will show you yourself wearing the dress in a variety of styles, even show you how it will gather and fall. And if you like it enough, it'll go out and buy it for you as well. And you can set all these things going. So you have a number of agents able to run it. And that, I think it was Anthropic came up with the context of this MCP. It's like an API for LLMs, basically, where you can plug them all together. And Google are going to support that. But it was AI heavy is what I'm saying. So just to go through this in order, Google's AI mode is search coming for everyone. So now if you go to Google and you search, you get AI results, and that's only going to get worse. You're probably going to get to the point where you don't see any results at all. It's just going to give you an AI with a couple of links within the AI search that we get, and that felt very much part of the announcement.
Do you think Google are worried people are starting to change their home pages to OpenAI.com or ChatGPT?
Probably.
Yeah, okay.
There'll be a portion of people who already have, and if you look at the videos that are being created and the way influencers talk about this, it's very much the case, and that's why we have Grok, we have ChatGPT, we have DeepSeek on all these models, and I agree with you. I think people are changing their home pages to these things.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I'm going to talk ChatGPT later, and I think that's what I'm seeing.
Fair enough. The second announcement was Project Starline, which is their 3D video conferencing thing. We're not going to see it on our webcams anytime soon, but it's quite impressive technology. Marcus Brownlee did a video about Project Starline as was. Now it's Google Beam a couple of years back, and it's quite impressive.
I like the Beam logo, that little 3-dot thing. That's quite neat.
Yeah, they're good at this stuff, Google. They're good at video conferencing. I'll give them that. They have an AI text-to-image generator that's now able to produce videos as well, called Imogen and Veo, and that's really impressive. It's worth going and having a look at some of their AI filmmaking things. If you click on the show notes, you'll be able to see that. There's a new version of Gemini, 2.5 Pro. They showed off their X-Real Project Aura glasses. We talked about this last year with Google I/O. Somebody in London able to walk around, identify the city they were in. There was a really stupid section of somebody wearing these, walking along the street going, why does this person keep following me? And Project Aura going, that's your shadow. What's this really skinny building I'm looking at? That's a lamppost. LLMs are going to think we're incredibly thick as human beings. But the point was to give you a feel for what it can actually recognize in the world around you and respond to voice inputs. So that was quite clever.
They're throwing a lot of stuff at the wall here, aren't they?
They really are. You're going to get Gemini built directly into Chrome, another reason not to use the Chrome browser.
I'm amazed it's not already. I'm surprised it's only just coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about in Car Corner about how it's coming to some vehicles as well. If you want to pay for all of these things, like if you want access to some of this agentic stuff and the ability to edit AI videos now with sound, you're going to be paying the $250 a month price for this, though, which is not nothing.
So what's that? It's $3,000 a year.
Yeah. Plus, if you're an AI developer, the chances are you're paying for ChatGPTs and Anthropics and Claudes and all that kind of stuff as well. You could put out a lot of money in AI agents. Yeah,
it's an expensive place to be at the moment.
When you talk to the camera, it'll talk about what you see in real time. I gave an example of that a minute ago. You can use a tool to create AI app interfaces. So if you've ever done CSS for a website, this can build you one really, really quickly. It's very clever what they showed online. You're going to get live AI speech translation in Google Meet. The example they gave was somebody speaking Spanish to somebody English and how in real time it started to translate what they were saying. It was quite clever, in a nice accent as well, and it could go back and forth in the middle of a conversation. So you could start it in English, it would switch to Hindi and switch back again to English. It was really quite clever. They've already built in smart replies to your inbox, what will go through all your email and reply using your sort of voice when you reply to emails and things like that. And Sundar Pichai did a demo of that live on stage. And I already talked about the dress stuff. It's going big on AI shopping. So there was a lot in it, but don't watch the whole conference. All the impression you get is AI, Gemini, and it's here now.
You missed the last option.
Did I? What was the last option?
Google Chrome will soon help you update compromised passwords. But the interesting thing here is it will also generate a new password, but then go off and tell the website and update it. Actually update it on the service for you. That's quite neat. I like the sound of that.
That is quite useful because, password hygiene is a problem, as we've talked about repeatedly on this podcast.
People barely go and change their passwords today. So I think that's quite cool.
So there you go. That's your update on Google I/O, just to prove we're not, and Microsoft, just to prove we're not a purely Apple podcast.
I think it's quite interesting. There's a lot of good stuff here. It's going to be interesting to see what Apple come back with, but I fear Apple's is going to be AI light, whereas Google have gone AI only. It feels like WWDC will be the other way around.
Apple have missed the boat so far, but that's not to say they can't just put their hand in their very deep pocket and buy someone.
Yeah, this is true. I'm amazed they haven't done that yet.
Yeah, they should get on and do that. They should be out there buying Claude or whatever the cheapest one is at this point.
Or all of them.
Yeah, that is a possibility too, or all of them, yeah. Although I think it's interesting that Microsoft, at their build event, were distancing themselves slightly from OpenAI.
It does feel like that. The honeymoon period is over for some reason.
Yeah, and I guess, as they say, you don't bet against Microsoft in these kinds of things, do you?
That is true.
Very quick bit of news. This should maybe have gone into gaming, but AMD have come out and announced their competitor to the latest NVIDIA chips. It's the Radeon RX 9060. It's got 16 gigs of GDDR6 RAM, which is very, very fast RAM with 32 compute units. It's going to be a bit of a beast of a graphics card. NVIDIA have always had the lead on this kind of stuff. When AMD have released graphics cards, then they tend to be slightly cheaper, so it's potentially going to be competitive with that. You can spend up to $2,000 on a graphics card these days for a consumer PC, never mind what you stick in a server. So if this is in the sort of £500 to £700 mark and can take it to NVIDIA, I suspect they'll do quite well with this.
Wow, that's a lot of money. It's a big old card, isn't it? Look at it.
It's a lot of money, but it's going to make your Warcraft 2 look amazing, Chris.
I'm quite enjoying my Warcraft 2, but I'm not sure even the remastered needs a beefier graphics card.
No, it probably doesn't. But anyway, for those of you who pay attention to these things, it's probably worth keeping an eye on this because A, it's good for games, but B, if you do want to run local LLMs and develop them, then you need this kind of stuff, to be able to do that. So this is where Apple, I think, do need to pay attention for developers. They've got enough RAM in their devices now to be able to cope with large language models, particularly even the largest, Quen, for example. But there's no substitute for very fast RAM and a lot of video RAM at that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Looks good.
For Apple, this is advice on 9 to 5 Mac that came out on the 20th of May. They've come up with, we don't know what iOS 19 is yet, but there's 3 features they've said that are going to make it essential for what you do. The first one is adaptive AI-driven low power modes. This is basically, you're using a lot of battery. We're automatically going to flip you in a battery saver mode, which I can't believe doesn't exist already, frankly.
Well, nothing AI really exists on the iPhone, does it? So this kind of makes sense.
That's fair.
Surely we need to reach a state where low battery mode isn't a thing, and your battery, the phone just does it, and you don't even need to think about it.
But this should happen, and as you say, I'm surprised it doesn't. It should know what you do. It vaguely knows what time you get up in the week and at a weekend, barring the odd thing. It knows what your work day looks like, when it's likely to be pulling a lot of cellular, when you're likely to be on your commute, if you're on a train surfing all the time, whatever it is you're going to do, using your on-device LLM. It should know this stuff. But also, paired with this is, I think I'll get the technology slightly wrong, but silicon carbide, the next generation of battery technology, is a lot better on batteries. You'll get 2 or 3 days out of a battery instead of just one. Although if you're smashing it with AI, maybe that'll go back to a day. But I think this is fair enough, and it should be doing it already.
Yeah, agreed. It'll be interesting.
The second thing is a one-and-done Wi-Fi captive screen, so we've all been there. I see it all the time on train Wi-Fi particularly, where you sign into the portal to say, here's my email address, yes, I accept that I'm not going to do anything dodgy here, just give me the internet, please. I don't want to look at your portal, and then 5 minutes later you see it again.
Or you have to do it on all your devices, so if it's going to sync, that's going to be quite cool.
Yep. So this will just be able to handle that for you, and I think that's probably a very good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then last but not least, you won't have to use Siri if you're in the EU. You'll be able to use whatever voice assistant you want. And again, this is something they should offer around the rest of the world. If you want to use ChatGPT, you should be able to.
Yep. Stop forcing everybody to do what you do, Apple, because you're not doing a good solution.
And here's my prediction for WWDC. Gemini will be first party like ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think that's a done deal.
Fair enough. I'm glad we agree on something. And last but not least, if you're an Adobe Creative Cloud customer, it's about to get more expensive for you. It's staggeringly expensive already, so this is just off the charts, really.
This is just Adobe having their Apple moment of, we could just make some more cash.
I mean, they're a pretty scummy company anyway. I've talked before about trying to leave the Adobe contract and them wanting you to pay for the end of it. So even though you pay on a monthly basis, they view you as having paid for a year. And if you go 1 month into your new contract and decide to cancel it, you're liable for the 11 months of the contract. It's absolutely the worst kind of capture. It's even worse than Apple and Google's.
It feels a bit old school, doesn't it? Of in a world where we live in monthly subscriptions. Why can't they can do that, but they don't want to.
I mean, I wasn't paying a huge amount for it because I had the educational bundle. It was like £20 a month or something. But for the people on the higher end of this, their subscriptions are going up $120 or more per year. And I think as Adobe adds more features to this, AI features, it's only going to get more expensive. So, you're talking up to $779 annually for using Adobe Creative Suite. That's quite a lot of money. I mean, if you're a big Hollywood editor or podcast editor, it's probably worth it. But average Joe Schmo does not need this level of pricing for an application that you can probably buy once and use forever.
Yeah, I came off it a long time ago and moved to Pixelmator for my needs for this very reason. It just got too expensive for me.
I mean, I guess, again, if you're an illustrator, nothing but Photoshop will do because that's your workflow. But I think, as we said last week, maybe it's time to learn some new things that you could use GIMP or Pixelmator or one of these other, pay once and use forever kind of programs or open source programs. Or Photopea or one of these other ones, which are at least have a lower subscription rather than just slavishly giving your money to Adobe every month.
Yeah, I don't mind paying like an annual subscription if for a tool I use a lot, but I don't want to be nickel and dimed. For me, I don't like monthly things. I'd rather just pay annually. It's done. Hopefully have a saving in there. And obviously, if I'm using it for my tool, I was going to buy Nova. Again, do you remember Panic's HTML editor? I can use an old version because that's what I licensed 3 years ago. It still works. If I want the new one, it's about £50 a year. And I thought, actually, £50 a year, if I was a web developer, is a drop in the ocean. If it's a good tool and I use it every day to build a website, then that feels like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, but this is the Adobe that, remember, they changed all their terms and conditions at one point, and all the creators thought they'd lost access to their stuff, and it all belonged to Adobe. So I wouldn't be trusting them with that.
Yeah, I'm not going to be rushing to the Adobe camp personally.
Fair enough. Shall we do a car corner?
Yeah, what have we got in car corner?
So what we've got in car corner is Google Gemini. Hey!
It's more like AI corner today.
It is a bit, but that's not a surprise. We're a technology podcast. This has particular interest to me because their first partner, we talked about Aston Martin and Apple last week, their first partner is Volvo.
They've gone for the premium British sports brand. Oh, no, wait a minute.
Not in this case.
I do like my Volvos, though. I know you have one, but I think Volvo make good cars.
The Volvo's boxy but good was always the thing about Volvo, and they're certainly moving to a more technology first instance. I can speak about my car, which is very Tesla-like in the fact that everything comes into the iPad that's stuck on the dashboard, and there isn't even a speedometer or a heads-up display in front of you. So the new version of Android Automotive is going to get Gemini first. Volvo are going to be the lead technology partner by that. I have my concerns about Volvo's ability to implement this in their vehicles, given the state of some of the software in mine, but yay, I guess. I'm going to be on the bleeding edge in my car.
It's good they're investing and moving forwards rather than my frustration with my BMW was it was like a one and done for BMW. There were never really any good updates coming. They never really invested and moved it forwards. And so I think it's probably good if you're going to keep that car for a number of years. Hopefully it's going to move forwards and get better.
I mean, I will say the Google Assistant is far better than Siri ever was anyway. Asking it to turn the heating up, make the temperature 22 degrees, turn on the heated seats, turn off the heated steering wheel. It does that instantly now. So,
I never use any of that stuff. My BMW would do that, but I just push the button.
Yeah, and often I would as well, but you had physical buttons, whereas I have a big touchscreen.
Mine was a bit mixed. Some were buttons, some were not.
Anyway, this is interesting, and, Gemini and LLMs for your car now too.
Yeah, Google are trying to make up the ground they lost, and I think they've done a way better job than maybe Apple.
They're certainly diversified, aren't they? I wonder if the breakup by the Department of Justice will affect Android Automotive.
I did think that, as you said, Gemini was being put into Chrome. Sure, that's just getting more in bed.
One thing that's quite good news, we're often talking about the pollution that big cars make, is Brembo, who make brakes, have come up with brakes that reduce brake dust by almost 90%. Brake dust is a significant pollution impacting, if you think a number of cars, buses, etc., that's out there, this can only be a good thing that you get less pollution from your brakes. Great.
Yeah, I love that because my alloy's always filthy with brake dust. So the win for that, win for the dust on the road, in the environment. It's brilliant. Can we get everybody doing this, please?
Yeah, let's have this on across all things. It's funny, I was watching, we'll talk about it later, but Race Across the World and just the number of buses in India. And you think how much brake dust, tire pollution, whatever's coming out of the engine is sort of spewed out continuously there. As here, as in all developed countries as well. It's not just an Indian problem. It was just the sheer number of buses in one place that stood out to me. But I think this is good. Let's have less polluting things, please. The American government might not like less polluting things, but the rest of us appreciate a bit of green stuff going on.
Yep, no, that's fair.
I think that's it for Car Corner. Should we do a quick bit of media?
Yeah, let's do media. Somebody has been watching Mission Impossible, I note.
Well, I talked about it last week that I was going to make the effort, so I have done my homework, and I have done Mission Impossible 1 and Mission Impossible 2. And I started doing Mission Impossible 3 last night, and then I remembered Race Across the World was on, so I stopped.
So no spoilers for Race Across the World, because I have not seen it.
Okay, no spoilers then. Telling you they're in India isn't a spoiler. You knew that last week.
They were in India last week. So Mission Impossible 1 and 2, I think from memory, they're probably the ones I know the most, because I would have watched them in my more formative years. But they're probably the ones that probably have aged the worst.
In some ways, yes. I think Mission Impossible, it's not a bad film. It's notable for being one of the first films that an actor did their own stunts in. So the scene in the aquarium in Mission Impossible where they explode the aquarium and Tom Cruise jumps out, I think certainly the first time he'd actually done his own stunt for something like this. And it's well done. And sort of the argument is, if an actor will do it, it lets you as a director, as cinematographer, do a lot more, rather than trying to mask the actor's face, shoot it from a funny angle or something like that, slow it down so you can actually focus on the actor.
Do it in CGI these days.
Do it in CGI, which has always looked a bit fake. If you go back and watch something like Terminator 2, when Arnold Schwarzenegger jumps the motorbike,
yeah,
it looks nothing like Arnold Schwarzenegger when you see his face. So Tom Cruise doing this and making that decision impacted filmmaking, which is fairly impressive to say. He's much younger when he did this and had been through, or was about to go through, the difficult patch where he was jumping on Oprah's couch and all the rest of it. It's a decent film. It's a decent action film with some quality actors in it, including Kirsten Scott Thomas, Emilio Estevez is in there, John Voight is in there. It's and the heist scene where they break in at the vault in the CIA, which has now been parodied by everything, is still a really tense scene to watch to this day.
Yeah, I need to go. I probably do need to rewatch some of these. I meant to do it, and I just haven't had the time, weirdly enough.
So I quite enjoyed Mission Impossible, and you can definitely track a line from this to the Bourne films, that sort of slightly more realistic action that came about as something like this, and then seeing Tom Cruise do the stunts is really impressive. And I think the critics were a bit sniffy about this. We're looking at Rotten Tomatoes as usual. They only gave 65%, 71% for the audience, and I think it's a little better than that. I'd give it high 70s. I think it was a decent film.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I fancy watching this one. I actually quite like this when it came out.
Mission Impossible 2, however. I'm kind of with the audience on this one. So this was a John Woo special.
That's not done well, is it?
It's not done well. It wasn't great when it came out. I had problems with the casting. Tandy Newton is excellent. Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise, and they go a bit strong on the floppy hair here, but it was the time. It was fine. John Woo shoots everything in slow motion with a bit of a layer of Vaseline over the camera, I think. And the John Woo trademarks are there, the slow motion and the birds. He always had birds fluttering around in a couple of his scenes as well, and he does that really heavily in this. And it's a bit of a nonsense story. It's just not very well thought through. There's all sorts of logical problems with it. Dougray Scott, who is a fellow Scot, is not well cast in it as like the opposite to Ethan Hunt, and I can't forgive it for how bad the motorcycle section is. The dueling motorbikes that rear up like dragons, and you can hide behind them when you're being shot at like they're invincible. It's not a great film.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because John Woo did Face Off, I think, if I remember correctly, and I think that aged a lot better. I actually really enjoyed that film. It is disappointing, and it's probably one of the weaker ones. Possibly the weakest one in the whole Mission Impossible etology.
I think that's fair. And also, I didn't realise this, Brendan Gleeson pops up as like the bad businessman in this. Who knew?
Brendan Gleeson. Wow, okay. He gets into quite a few things.
Well, I think this must have been one of his first... I mean, he's not a young man in this by any means, but it must be one of his first sort of Hollywood films, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I'm trying to think back what I'd have seen him in before, and I can't think.
There you go. So that was it for Mission Impossible 2. Other than that, I've continued to watch Long Way Home. I'm on episode 4 now. We've just had Ewan. No spoilers, I won't say that. Ewan comes a cropper, but he's fine. It's inspired me to go and buy a bike. I think I said this last week. I still feel like it this week. I'm not going to go and buy a bike, but by gosh, I really want to.
Why not? Just go and buy one.
Yeah, you could just go and buy one, but yeah, they're not very friendly to bits of the family. The family,
Yeah.
they think you're immediately going to go and kill yourself, don't they? That's the problem.
Yeah, that is a problem.
Yeah.
I do understand that. You should definitely go get a bike though for podcast material.
It would be good podcast material, I'll give you that. I'm trying to bring it up on the screen here, but I can't. It's good. Have you been watching Long Way Home?
Yeah, I'm up to speed. I watched it last Friday when it came out. I often go for a run on a Friday on my treadmill, and so it's good iPad fodder to watch while I'm running. I think it's great. It's such a nice show to watch.
It is. It's a nice, gentle travel show. As is Race Across the World, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. I won't go through any spoilers, but it's just been a great season again this year.
I did find last week's, though, when they were in India, it was a little bit stressful just because it's so busy in India. Just so busy. And it's like, whoa, man, you could really feel it. And they did a great job, I think, of portraying that on the camera.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Yeah, good show. Keep watching it. I'm looking forward to Taskmaster tonight, but that's about it for my watching. I see you have something, though.
I've just dropped Cold Feet in. So if you remember, Cold Feet was like a series, semi-comedy, semi-drama in the 90s. I didn't know they did 4 entire seasons in the 2016 to 2019 era. And so I've binged a bunch of them. And actually, if you like Cold Feet from the 90s, it's fairly similar, and they've done a reasonable job of keeping it going. I'm so committed now. I'm going to just watch it to the end because I used to like Cold Feet when I was a lot younger. So I've had a little bit of a reminisce of that.
Yeah, I watched it back in the day. I did watch it when it came back in the 2000s. It's fine. Same characters again, except the one they couldn't bring back because nobody still accepts what happens.
Spoilers. But they've actually done a quite good job. I'm on the 4th season that they've done, and they've actually tied up some other characters from the like minor characters from the first set. They brought some of those back and things. So I think they've done an all right job with it. I
always felt it was a crossover between Cold Feet and Friends for the characters they brought into Friends. Without giving anything away, Ross marries, but Ross married everyone, so it's not giving anything away. I felt that was fairly deliberate, that they were sort of treading similar but very differently done water in the United States and the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I think that's possibly fair. I quite liked it, but I didn't know they'd done all these seasons, so that was something I've watched this week.
How fantastic for you. Games?
Games. Go on then.
Go on then. So first off, and this was a real debate for us to whether to put this in follow-up or whether to put this in games, but it's a slow games week, so games it's gone into. Apparently Microsoft also weighed into the Fortnite epic Apple fight, saying that Apple delayed the Xbox mobile store on iOS, which, yeah, they probably did.
And when they stopped Microsoft doing it the way they wanted, I think they wanted different apps for different games or something, or all in one app. I can't remember which round it was, but Apple wouldn't let them do that. Apple is very restrictive, isn't it?
Do you think this is what changed it, though? Microsoft starting to jump on, and then maybe Valve would have jumped in, and then maybe who else would have jumped in to say they wanted their game store, and then it becomes an overwhelming might of corporate America lining up against the Apple Store.
Potentially, they could all pile on at this point and say, "Well, Apple won't let us do what they want." They're not good custodians of the platform.
Yeah, they're absolutely being a monopoly and not letting poor little Microsoft and our multi-billion-dollar investment in Call of Duty and Bethesda and all these kinds of things in there. It's really mean of them, isn't it?
But imagine if these things did get in there, and you could actually play some really good games on your device.
Or at least stream some really good games on your device.
Because mobile gaming has never been... It's been all right for puzzle games and this and that, but it's never had a lot of the titles that it should have because it could run them.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem with mobile gaming is the size of the downloads. That, like, the Apple TV would be a great gaming device. It's got a great processor in it, but it doesn't have a big enough SSD in it to actually download something that's chunky.
Yep, and game controller. It's got some support, but who actually has a game controller on the Apple TV?
People buy them for it. I mean, it does now. You can pair an Xbox Series X controller, S controller, or whatever the current version of the DualShock is. I can never remember. DualShock 6.
I can't remember. DualSense.
DualSense.
I agree with you, but how many people do you know that A, own an Apple TV that isn't techie, and B, has an Apple TV that then has a controller paired with it? Very few.
I think you're right, and the sort of the weight to your argument is some games really haven't done well on mobile anyway. So the mobile version of Apex Legends, which I was quite into, Respawn took it away, and similar is happening to the mobile version of Call of Duty Warzone. Apparently, they're going to pack up on that as well. So Candy Crush is what you get.
Yay.
And Slay the Spire and Balatro.
All games I've never played.
All games you've never played.
Well, I have played Slay the Spire briefly.
Unacceptable. I have played a game this week, or at least I've tried to. This is a really old game that's been made new again, so it's called Dwarf Fortress. It's described as one of the most difficult games of all time, or one of the deepest games of all time. No particular joke about dwarfs there.
It looks a bit like Prison Architect on some of the screenshots.
A little bit. So I think this game actually goes back to the early 90s. There was like an ASCII art version of it you could play in your terminal on Linux and Windows. And they updated it about 5 years ago to run on Windows, maybe a little before that, a little after that, to give it slightly better graphics. But it's not really about the graphics, it's about the management of it. You can absolutely go down to whatever level of managing your civilization, dwarves in this case, as you want. You can tell them where to dig, you can tell them what trees to chop, how much of it to store in what particular areas, how much water they should do. All the dwarves and all the characters in it are molded into their lives, their marriages, their relationships. If you don't look after them, they'll go off and commit suicide, they'll go off and leave your thing. It's a super, super deep game, which I occasionally read about and give a side eye to try and understand. And I've bought it last week. Not that it was on sale or anything like that, but I thought I'd have a go. And even just the tutorial screen is beginning to freak me out. But I've played about 40 minutes of it at this point, and my God, it looks deep. It really does. That for those watching on the YouTube, you'll be able to see the original ASCII art version of it that briefly shot up on the screen there. But you can model almost the real world, it seems to be. It's an incredible game. A bit of Dungeon Keeper and a bit of SimCity in there.
Yes, Dungeon Keeper. That's what I was trying to think of as well. Okay. Looks kind of interesting. I've not played it. I've never heard of this.
It's an old school game. I should maybe, if you remind me, I'll put in the show notes a link to the wiki article about Dwarf Fortress. But yeah, it's a long-standing thing.
Cool. No, that's good.
You played anything this week?
Warcraft 2 remastered that I mentioned. Do you know what? They've done a really good job of it. It's a very simple game, but the way they've done the icons, I'm amazed they've even bothered to spend the time on it. So that's my jam at the minute. I'm close to finishing one of those campaigns.
Fair enough. Should we do a main show?
Let's do it.
It's pretty short this week, I think. We've both talked about independently a little app called Tailscale. And Tailscale is a VPN, is a simplistic way of thinking about it. So a VPN is a virtual private network. It gives you access to stuff. You most often see them advertised on other podcasts and YouTube and things like that, to have access to either secured access when you're sat in an internet cafe or a cafe or a hotel or something like that. So if you turn on your VPN, it's either to connect you to work, or it's so the open hotspot that you're using can often be viewed, what sites you're going to and what you're downloading or what you're making use of, by the hotspot's owner. And if you tunnel your traffic through a VPN, then they can't. So the example would be to VPN into work, you have a secure connection to your workplace that is, I won't say unhackable, but more difficult for a man-in-the-middle attacks and things like that to have access to. You get access to your work stuff. It's a direct connection to your work or your home or whatever, and you go from there. Is that a reasonable description of a VPN?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
You also see them used by people like NordVPN, Surfshark, and others, not sponsors, by the way, to have access to American Netflix or Brazilian Netflix. If there was a particular show that's accessible there that isn't in your country, you quite often see them being advertised in that way.
Or maybe you're going on holiday and you want to watch the Formula One, so you pretend you're back at home in the UK and your iPad or your phone will let you watch it. So because you're saying, no, I'm not in Spain, I'm in the UK.
Yeah, exactly that. So that's what, in the generic sense, they are. And that sort of use case of VPN company X will sell you a VPN with a number of exit routes. So you can say, I connect to my VPN and I want to come out in Sweden, or I want to come out in the Netherlands, or I want to come out in the UK, or this part of London, or this part of Manchester. The bigger ones have multiple exit routes all over the place. So if you look at the United States, they'll have several within a city or even within a locality, because a lot of the streaming providers got quite wise to it. They were suddenly getting a lot of traffic from one IP address inside of one country, and they would block that very, very quickly. So that was part of the point of it. But ultimately, they're for anonymity. They're either for anonymity for you to connect to your workplace so people can't see what's going on, or people, your ISP, your internet service provider, can't see where you're browsing to for whatever reason. And we'll jump over whatever those reasons might be. But it's about your security and your anonymity while you're surfing.
Yeah, so I was working in a coffee shop today on a public Wi-Fi, and so I just turned on my VPN just because somebody else could be sat on that Wi-Fi doing something malicious and trying to snoop and see who else is on it and can they get anything. So that's why I often turn it on. Absolutely.
The classic thing was, once upon a time in a hotel, you'd connect to the Wi-Fi before people would think about these things, and you'd see everybody's shares on their computer. Now, that's the least sophisticated attack in the world. You can do far more these days by actually sort of deep scanning packets and doing all sorts of stuff on people's computers while they're using it, particularly if you own the hotspot. Or the wireless network, you can see what's happening there. So that's fine. Lots of people will sell you a VPN. What makes Tailscale different? Well, Tailscale gives you access to your home network and your computers, and you can basically build up a network of your computers. So in Chris's case, when you're in the coffee shop and you want to connect to your home computer or make use of your home Wi-Fi, when you flip on your Tailscale VPN, all your packets are routed as if you're coming out of your house. And while you've got that connection active, you can, with Tailscale, make other computers on that network accessible to you. So if you've got a home server with all your media on it, for example, when you turn on your Tailscale VPN, you have access to that as if you were in your house.
Or you've left a file on your desktop, or you're coding, as I've been, and you haven't checked in a file because you're coding it on your desktop Mac and you want it on your other Mac. And that's how I use it. So I've got it installed here on my Mac Mini in my shed. I've then got it also installed on my laptop and on my iPad. It's very good on the iPad, I must confess. And basically, you leave it on for me, I leave it on my desktop all the time. And then on my iPad or my laptop, I can just connect to Tailscale, and then I can see it. And I use an app called Screens to do remote desktop. And that actually has a Tailscale section in it because it's Tailscale aware. And then I can just click on my Mac Mini and in essence, I've brought the screen up, I've remoted onto that computer. I could be sat in this coffee shop. I could check in the file that I'd forgotten or grab something off the desktop, or maybe I want to run an app or do something on my home network. I can do it all from there, or I forgot to kick something off. It's really good. And you know what? So easy to set up, no technical config. It's kind of like an Apple solution in my head. It just kind of works. There's no real errors, there's no real config. You just install it and off you go.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing about it. If you had a sufficiently sophisticated home router, or you knew what you were doing with a bit of computer hardware, you can set up your own VPN using things like WireGuard, and I've talked about them on this podcast before, where you could do this anyway. You can set up a computer inside your machine, open up your firewall, give access, but you got to have a certain amount of technical understanding to be able to do that. Whereas this, it's literally you install a couple of commands, and many bits of software, as Chris has said, already have this support built into it for Tailscale. It's quite easy to sign in on. Their licensing seems far too open to me. It is a closed source company, but they will allow you to have 3 users and like 99 devices or something like that connected to your tailnet, as they call it. So it's very, very generous. And if it does freak you out that it's a company that has it, although it's a VPN, so it's fairly secure, and they want you to use two-factor authentication, all that kind of stuff too. So all the security standards seem right. There are open source variants of it called Headscale, which you can set up as well. But for the purpose of this, we'll stick to calling it Tailscale. And that sort of use case of, I want to remotely connect to a machine, or I've forgotten a file and I didn't put it on a cloud provider because you don't trust the cloud provider or whatever, is a really sort of great use case for why you want something like this.
Yeah, and it's just so easy. That's what got me. I thought I was going to be faffing with it and having to configure it or do stuff, and you really don't. Also, for home use, it's free. It's perfectly legally free, and I was amazed by that as well. I thought, sure, they're going to charge for it. I guess they want home people to use it, and they're going to make their money off at enterprises.
And you could understand why, because it's a really well integrated solution. I was just trying to think of a couple other use cases for people. So not every computer on your network you may be able to install things on. Let's say you had a dumb security camera set up sitting on an old computer somewhere that you can only access inside of your intranet. Installing Tailscale on a couple of machines in your network where you can then go on to hit that computer is a great use case for you making your dumb device accessible when you're out in the world. So if you do go to Spain and you want to see what's going on with your home security cameras and their dumb ones, this could be a way of getting in there to do that. Another use case I've got is there's a Tailscale client for Apple TV. So I now travel with an Apple TV when I'm off and about. I check in at a hotel, I plug in my Apple TV, I flip on Tailscale when it's on the VPN, when it's on the Wi-Fi, and I've got a secure connection back to this, and I can stream my stuff from wherever in the world I am whenever I want. It's terrific.
Yeah, that is quite cool. That's great use.
And I've sort of supplemented that again because I've got a travel router as well. So I have a GL iNet travel router, so I don't trust their... You can connect the travel router to the Wi-Fi or a wired connection in there, and it also has Tailscale built into it. It's part of your Tailscale network. So you flip on, your Apple TV always connects to a router it knows. You do have to manage the connection to the hotel Wi-Fi or whatever inside of your router, but that's very, very simple to do. So you don't even need to set up passwords on your devices when you're traveling. My laptop, my phone, my Apple TV, all connect to the same router. I have to fiddle with the router a little bit to get it connected to the whole Wi-Fi or plug a cable into it, and I'm off to the races.
Yeah, that's very clever.
Thank you. I do try. But
it's just quite neat, isn't it? It's quite cool to have that experience. I don't take that much when I go abroad. I just watch stuff on my iPad. But you're obviously more tech savvy than I am.
I travel around a fair bit, it must be said, to America and here, there, and everywhere. Although hopefully a bit less this year. And it's been a bit of a revelation for me that I've got in my rucksack. I've got all this stuff with me. My travel router's only not much bigger than a deck of cards. It's got a good 5 gigahertz connection on it, so it's fast enough. It's got all this stuff built into it. Tailscale is on. It's got an ad blocker built into it as well, so we don't have to deal with any of the hotel scummy stuff that they might try and surface. And it's a double layer of protection. Not only am I through a VPN, but I'm through my own router that I take with me as well. So it works really, really well. And Tailscale enables that. And you can install it on anything. Apple TVs, Linux boxes, laptops, iPads, phones, Android devices. It's a really straightforward thing to get up and running. It's
a bit like Netflix. Like they've got it on every device. It's just whatever you want is there kind of thing. It's very clever.
Yeah, and the fundamental of it is open source. It uses the WireGuard protocol, which is an open source VPN, sort of point-to-point protocol. But the special stuff they've built on top of that to make it easier is really impressive. And the other thing they've got is the ability to publish sort of websites inside of your tailnet on particular devices. So you probably haven't gone this far on it, but there's loads of commands you can have a look at within Tailscale. So you can just spin up individual web pages and give yourself access to things off machines and things like that. It's really it can be more sophisticated if you want it to be, but it doesn't have to be. At its basics, it does things just very simply and very well. And for macOS users and iOS users, it just behaves as the default VPN on the system, so you can flick it on. Another, as I was saying that, I just thought of my last uses, which is when I'm roaming on other mobile providers' networks, I can just flick on my Tailscale. The GPS knows I'm away, but as far as the data is concerned, it's all coming through my home network. So everything that I need to do isn't being carried by the foreign carrier when I'm out and about.
Yeah, it's very cool, isn't it? Actually, it's I don't know, it's just such good tech. It's just hard to explain because it's just, I don't know, it's just so simple to use. It just absolutely blows my mind.
It works really well, and the sort of little macOS and iOS clients, where for those watching the YouTube, it creates its own network of IP addresses, 100.78 as the example in this one. But through the flick of a switch, you can actually get it to work with your home's network devices, DNS and IP addresses as well, which is nerdier than most people care about. But it gives you a list, so it'll name your machines as well. So there's a particular thing you want to connect to. In Chris's example, the screens client that he wants to connect to his Mac to be able to remote control it. It'll be in the drop-down list at the top of his Mac. You can click on it, get the IP address, and paste it into screens. Or it will automatically connect in its case, because it's Tailscale aware. But it's just a very flexible thing that I'm continually impressed by.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I endorse it too.
Fair enough. Anything else to say about Tailscale?
Nope.
One more thing, just while we're on the subject of accessing your home network, is that I quite like this piece in Ars Technica this week about self-hosting having a moment. So I've said a few times I self-host a number of services on my network. But it's just nice to see that recognition, and I think this is being spurred by a little bit of Trump and Broadcom. Who's the company that owns VMware these days? I forget. It's Broadcom.
Yeah, Broadcom.
The move away and the slight distrust of cloud-based services that aren't owned by you. So you might want to run your own Nextcloud. You might want to run your own file server. You might want to run your own media server. Self-hosting is a way to do that, and it's just a very interesting article about Docker containers and VPNs and NASs and things like that, where it's quite well explained by the guys and girls at Ars Technica about what the kinds of things you can do with self-hosting. And it's interesting when they list all the things that you might want to self-host. Jellyfin is a self-hosted media server, so if you've got your who would download TV and films, but if you had DVDs that you owned that you'd happen to back up and have on a hard drive somewhere, then Jellyfin will do the Netflix type thing of titling them, giving them nice chapter art, telling you what actors are in them and all that kind of stuff, and that's something you can host yourself. Home Assistant is a replacement for Apple Home or Google Home or one of these things where you can control your light bulbs, you can control your doorbell alarms, you can integrate your webcams and things like that into it and have your home security system and all set up with rules and actions. So, and it even has a little bit of LLM built into it, so you could set it up to say, okay, I recognize that's Rod at the door, open the garage, turn on this light and boil the kettle. You can build all that stuff into Home Assistant. It's just another thing you can host. I'll talk about one more on this list. Image, which is a replacement for Google Photos that I think I've talked about in the podcast before, is just another example of the kind of thing you can self-host and why you might want to start thinking about taking control of your own data and your own services for not a lot of money. So I'm just glad to see this.
Yeah, it does feel like we're having the age of going back to how things used to be a little bit there. And it's a lot easier to do it these days. I think a lot of the tech is really accessible. I'm going to say it's just a lot easier than how it used to be to install these things, set them up, keep them running. Yeah. So it's quite an interesting time.
Definitely, you might want to check out some of these things that I've talked about before, like Pi-hole and things like that. But there you go. That's all I had to say about that.
That's cool. But yeah, I can see the appeal of it. It's just whether you want to just spend a little bit of time and set it up so that you are decoupling yourself from the evil overlords.
I think it might be worth having a look at. App of the week.
Yeah, do it.
So app of the week this week is called Spokenly. It's on the Apple App Store. It's a means of downloading and making use of some of the LLMs for text to speech. So I use a thing called Mac Whisper for the podcast, where I translate the I drop the audio file of the podcast onto this, and it will generate a text transcript, which I can also use for subtitles for the YouTube video. But it's a really quite quick way of translating your text to speech. It also does the Mac thing of where you can hold down a key and you can see your text as you speak, so you can dictate into an app. Spokenly is just a very nice free Whisper as a paid in-app upgrade, but Spokenly is entirely free. Lets you choose what model you want to download. If you've had any interest in sort of text to speech or transcribing files or things like that, it's a really nice way to do it. Spokenly, check it out.
Sounds good. I like the sound of it.
Yep, you should. You've got a nice powerful Mac. You want to check it out.
It is nice having a powerful Mac, I must confess. So in a similar vein, I've actually gone with ChatGPT this week.
But this is for thing of the week. You didn't say it. You got to have the
say thing of the week, did I? Sorry, I apologise. My thing of the week is ChatGPT, so on a similar theme to you. And the reason I've picked this is I've started doing some coding. I'm trying to prototype an app, and I'm super impressed with it. I just type in Swift UI. How does a switch statement work? It comes back with an example. Swift UI, how do I have a setting preference with a toggle switch? And a few words, and it's going to be exactly what I want. I'm not trawling off, clicking through loads of articles, trying to work out which one works. It's just very impressive how it works. I've not been a big ChatGPT user, but all of a sudden I've had my moment, and it's really ticking some boxes for me. I'm quite impressed with it. I feel a bit bad about using it. And I don't know why I feel bad about using it. It's very clever tech and nicely presented. We talked about Jony Ive joining them, but I think they already have a great look, and they've done a really good job with the website. Very easy to use. It was interesting. They're A/B testing some results with me. We're showing you two ways of how the results work. Let us know which one's better, kind of thing. So that was quite interesting, but very easy to use. I'm just using the free version at the moment, which seems pretty good to me. I have had it generate images, and a few times I've done that, it said there's loads of people doing it. There will be a wait. But 5 minutes later, it's done.
Did you see it got my query wrong?
No, I didn't quite see what had happened there.
So we just talked about the Spokenly app. I asked what is the Spokenly app. It came up with a whole bunch of stuff about this and gave a URL, spokenly.net. If you go to spokenly.net, it doesn't actually exist.
Oops.
Well done. Well done indeed. So yeah, I agree with you. I think there are lots of benefits to ChatGPT. We'll just skirt past all the issues that we've got with it burning the planet and all the rest of it and the hallucinations and things. I think for things like coding, it's actually really, really helpful for as long as you know the kind of output that you're expecting and you can sense check it and you don't just blindly copy and paste the text into it.
But I think that's the thing though with the coding side. You've got to go and sense check it in a way because you're going to put it in your app. You're then going to run your app and test your app, so you're going to know whether it works or not. But it is super interesting. Just some stuff it gets right and wrong. I asked it to do me a diagram of a manual gear stick, where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gears and reverse, say. But it had 2 6 gears for some reason. There are some things that it does get wrong.
It got us right, so we've just ChatGPT, what is the Wake from Sleep podcast? It knows there's two hosts, Rod Middleton and Chris. Have you not got your last name on there, Chris? Where's it not pulled that from?
I think it just says Chris on the website.
There you go. So it's scraped the website. It's given some nice sort of little icons about what our themes are, what our most recent episodes are. It's got links to Apple Podcasts and our official website, and it's even downloaded our show art there as well. So not terrible.
No, that's pretty good for us. It's about 20 odd episodes out of date, but it's free, and we're not even using the latest model, so it's not a surprise.
Yep, I think that's fair enough. I think we can call that a show, Chris.
Yeah, I think so. So if anybody would like to get in contact with us, Rod is at g5maniac@mastodon.scot. He's also on Blue Sky, where he's at g5maniac.bsky.social. I am at _CJP at mastodon.social. Or you can watch us on YouTube if you go to wakefromsleep.com and click on the YouTube link, or drop us an email at wakefromsleep@protonmail.com.
Talk to you next week, Chris.
Cheers, Rod.